You try to judge when the trends are growing or where they've been. My company has been considering marketing a board game based on the...
Okay, I'm leaving my apartment so that we can videotape the first rehearsal. I have my equipment and we're ready. Hello.
Hello.
Fourth floor. Thank you, darling. Bye-bye. Tracy? Oh, it's open. I tell everybody today, Tracy, that I'm not gonna do faces.
Okay.
I'm just gonna do hands and feet and voices.
Okay.
And papers. Because some people don't want to be on camera, and I understand it. Good morning, nice to see you. Okay, we're gonna start at 2. This is where we're going to rehearse. The only face on camera will be Zan. She is the villainess. She's.
Can I be her stand-in?
Before the vicious
This is
swap
what you do
is
this morning.
served.
We always get cookies if we're good.
You know what? We can put the lights
It's gonna
on.
be the name that's gonna be on the podcast.
Okay.
So how you want it set, if you want a stage name, you wanna use your regular name, or you want your regular name different or something. And also, it's just be very, very light, and just anything you have problems with, or anything you have questions about, just stop it and say, what about this or that or the other thing, or, you know. So it's gonna be a kind of a stop, when we first go through this, it's gonna be a kind of a stop and start type of thing. So, just to get everybody's ideas on it.
What are we going to do with the sound effects notes here? Just
And doing part of it is narration. I want to see how it works out. I'll give you what I have. This is how I changed it.
Yeah.
Here you go. I may or may not use it. I just want to hear it today. And Barbara, here's your narration.
Okay, great.
And where's your other narration?
Why not? All their comforts.
Now, I have a little teeny speech that I want to give to everybody. It's from Oscar Jaffe from the 20th century. And you know the musical On the 20th Century. Well, it was a movie with John Barrymore called The 20th Century. And before that was a play, not too many people know about, called Napoleon on Broadway, which I'm trying to track this is. And this is to all you guys. Here we start our maiden voyage here, our maiden podcast. We need a little bit of artistic impetus. There's no thrill in the world like launching a play, watching it come to life little by little, seeing the characters emerge like genii from the bottle. Now, before we begin, I want you all to remember one thing. No matter what I may say, no matter what I may do during our work, I love you all.
The Punch Bowl Bumpoff by Jan Hall. Music. Bluesy music typical of the 30s and 40s. It was 1936 America when a murder case hit the country like wildfire, capturing its attention. Mr. and Mrs. John Q. Public got tired of discussing King Edward's abdication.
called it the case of a flatulent fraud.
It was positively top drawer the way you unmasked the thief.
Routine. First, I strategically placed a few Mexican bean dishes around the bar. This phony French cousin who crashed the party ate a bunch of beans before he snuck into the library and found the safe. I got a good smeller, and it wasn't hard to sniff out his stinky trail from the library and into the parking lot. But there could be another reason why you called me in.
And what would that be?
Maybe to throw you and the late mister didn't have the idyllic marriage that your press agent was feeding to the news hounds with their rags. Calling it a PI is like offering a reward for the murderer's capture. Throws people off the scent.
I've met some tough eggs in my day, but it was just one ridiculous step away from saying, let the butler do it.
A lot of high-class brands here. Name your poison.
Martini, very dry, served in a Waterford glass with a twist of lemon, touch of vermouth, no fruit, just a hint of salt on the rim, sugar on the stem. My husband and I arrived with our neighbor, Mr. Rittenhouse and his wife, in their limousine at the club around 7. We went into the Rose Room cocktail lounge until dinner was announced, just a short time afterwards. I went into the ladies' powder room, and it was at that time that I heard a lot of commotion outside. People were screaming and running around in every direction. I learned that my husband had been murdered in the cocktail lounge. Someone had drowned him by holding his face down under the floating fruit slices in the punch bowl. His face was as red and bloated as a maraschino cherry. His mouth, so he couldn't cry out. Oh, it was horrible. I'll never eat fruit salad again.
Quite a sticky situation.
Are you referring to opium? I hadn't noticed.
Modulation here and there of like finding a lot of different ways of expression of using your voice that it goes in different directions with the character. Like right now what we're doing is we're going on a kind of level like this. You know, we're talking like this here, like Luella. Luella, I love the sexiness in your voice. Very, 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 very good.
Bent over with his head in the punch bowl, profile, with a strawberry sticking out of his mouth.
How will you account for the fact that Van Rich was still in an upright position, with his head in the punch bowl, without falling over?
Well, possibly he had too much starch in his shorts, or maybe he had entered the room just after the murder had taken place.
This Zion,
Katrina Zenovich, the cleaning lady.
She found him first, you say?
Yes, she went to clean the moneybags room.
She around now?
Why?
I want to question her.
I'm not sure if she's working today, but I'll check. Polo outfit. That's Robert P. Rittenhouse. He and his wife shared a limousine with the Van Riches to the club that night.
Thanks.
Certainly. Now I'll fetch Mrs. Malloy.
Was the heap so big nobody could hear each other?
The Van Riches had had a terrible row just before entering our car. I could hear them as they walked to a bit of background research on the street dances before their last feature at 8:30. That's why I checked my watch.
You're telling me you wanted to duck out of here and go see a Three Stooges feature?
We, in the toy manufacturing trade, pride ourselves in understanding what children want. The only way to grasp this is by functioning on their level.
They don't care who they let in this club, do they?
I noticed you made it through the door. Funny how you and Stupid go together. Playing again. Like Charlie and McCartney.
You don't have to worry about that. How'd you like to help me with my strokes sometimes, no?
It depends on how many balls you have.
I've got enough for a... Who could have given him a one-way ticket to the boneyard?
Well, I do remember him laughing about how ironic it was that Mr. Rittenhouse would be driving him and his wife to the ceremony that evening.
Why was it ironic?
Well, I hate to cast aspersions.
Don't feed it to me in eyedroppers, precious. Give.
Even though they were neighbors and club members, the two gentlemen were opponents in business. And I guess you can say
As a friendly rival, it's an oxymoron.
I resent that bodacious remark.
No, I meant...
Sir, you are no gentleman.
that means the twos don't go together.
Well, of course they don't. They're both men, silly. Mr. Van Rich was. I'm sure you heard. They were TRAC, Toys business partners afore Mr. Rittenhouse got exposed. I guess you would say in one of those girly movie houses. Mr. Van Rich paid a lot of people not to inform the press. It could have ruined their business.
How did you feel about Mr. Van Rich?
Oh, Richie, drinking aperitifs in the club's card room alone before noon. A little early for that, don't you think?
Why aren't you at the office inventing new toys that tots can blow us all off the face of the earth with?
Okay, you're gonna toss that off.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Anything, Richie's like so totally sarcastic with everything.
Okay, drag this whole murder episode up again.
But it was never settled. Don't you read Walter Winchell's column? It's the murder of the decade, overtaking the Lindbergh kidnapping. All eyes are upon us. Who will crack first to confess to the murder?
Oh, stop it. Can't you take anything seriously?
Why?
I don't like him poking around into my affairs. Ask him questions.
Are you afraid he'll find out about the Garden of Petty Cash?
How did you know about that?
It's common knowledge.
How common?
The club's underpaid busboys are more than happy to blab for a few dollars about you and my father arguing in the garden club.
When I dissolved our partnership over my indiscretion at the movie house, I'd not been able to live it down with our business associates. It's not easy to sell toys when you're labeled the degenerate in the dark or the talking titillator. I needed a new venue to stay on top of the business. I was able to secure a strong contract with the Little Orphan Annie creators. We regularly play polo together, and they listen to my thoughts about a new toy called Annie's Beauty Shop. I made the mistake of waving this newfound success in Simoleon's face, and he was able to sabotage me, thus averting me as a potential competitor.
So what? Sabotage is a regular occurrence in business. It's healthy for the economy.
What do you mean, if?
All you need to do is have patience and let the cards fall where they may. Well, if it isn't the wicked stepmother.
Please, Richie, none of your droll witticisms. Has anyone seen Flanagan?
Oh, take a number.
I've heard he's narrowed his investigation to a few suspects, but I don't know to whom.
Well, perhaps we put our heads together, we could come up with...
I'm not sure which.
If he chose to cut you from his will, that was his decision. Stop blaming me for it. He lived off his money as if it were water, hopping from one gay party to the next. Maybe this was the final answer to your hedonistic lifestyle.
Dear Luella, you're doing such marvelous advances in forensics. Forgery and other ungodly criminal cover-ups are being brought to light more easily.
Dear Richie, you're such a sore loser scrutinizing the murder.
Luella, let's run away from this.
Are you mad?
Yes, for you.
Oh, stop. Get away from me. Someone might see us.
I don't care.
I do.
Well, there's a lamp burning in the window of my heart for your return.
I jumped out that window a long time. I don't know what I ever saw in you, Robert. You can't even get song lyrics. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Wait a minute. You used me, didn't you?
I'll give you 1 second to release my arm.
You used me to introduce you to Simoleons at that soiree before you married him.
Robert, let me
I'll
go.
put my career, my family, my name, even my polo points on the line for you. I'd rather see you dead than lose you.
Some men in Louisiana before she met my father.
That's it.
Madame, will you please turn that thing off?
Yes, dirty, I clean.
I'm afraid we'll have to let Mrs. Zanovich get on with her cleaning.
I'll catch up with you later, Junior, after I...
Gotta yell, slats.
Very well.
Ozzy, turn that thing off, will ya?
Mrs. Zanovich. Mrs. Zanovich. This is Detective Slats Flanagan.
That's who?
Remember, I cautioned you that she's...
Not congestion, question. Questions. Listen, Madam.
Hello, Adam. I, Katrina.
No, I Slats.
Slats, I, Katrina. You hard of hearing.
What are we doing here? Laurel and Hardy routine? Come on, help me here, Arby. Tell her I want to find out what happened the day of the murder. I want to know what she saw.
Well, perhaps if I spoke to her in her country's language, it might help a little.
Which is?
She's from Yugoslavia. She speaks Croatian. Mrs. Elvin.
Yes, that's it. I think we got the connection. Tell me, what happened that night?
No, Belgrade.
Operator, we just lost the connection.
You ask if I'm Muscovite. I say no, I am from Belgrade, Yugoslavia, not Russia. A whole family from Yugoslavia, except cousin Vladimir, who is a little funny. He liking to wear grandma's petticoats. We think he from Transylvania.
Look, forget the family tree. What I want to know is what happened on Saturday, October 18th. You saw Van Rich dead.
Oh, yes, I see him. He dead. He had the day off. But I work on Saturday. All day Saturday cleaning. Big party. Lots of rich, famous people. Beautiful clothes. Everybody go into the dining room across the hall. Mr. Arbogash, he tell people go and eat. They hungry, they go. After they leave, I come in to clean and I see one man. He's standing, leaning over the table, the head in the bowl, not moving. I pay no attention. I think maybe he lose something in bowl. I ask to help, but he not answer. I ask again and touch on his shoulder like this. Tee, tee, tee. But he not move. He fall down. I hear his footsteps outside. I look up and see a man run past the window. A big man. I look at big man, back at man on the floor, and his face all puffy, not breathing. I find this on table next to him.
A small vial. Ammonia DZ with calcium propionate. Hair remover and a sprig of parsley. Knockout drugs. And Rich must have been drugged before he was murdered. Out of everyone I interviewed, the people in this room stood to gain from Van Rich's death. There are also discrepancies in everyone's stories that don't match. So I thought by inviting you all here, we could piece parts of the puzzle together.
So that's what this is. Shall I chronicle this gathering as at home, cocktail, or dinner affair?
Try necktie.
That's preposterous.
And Mr. Van Rich, to find out who murdered him.
I say, Flanagan, what are those objects you've been toying with in your hand? Something to help you concentrate, like Buddhist meditation beads?
I found these 3 golf balls yesterday in the mouth of one of the stone lions in Van Rich's estate garden. There was a note attached. It says, "Here are some balls to replace the ones you lost." They were obviously intended for him, but he never got a chance to see them.
You've been reading too many of them dying detective novels. That's what you are anyway.
I wondered how a burn artist like you breezed into a classy joint like the club.
Money's green, Pally. No matter who came to me and gave me the layout. Sounded good to me, especially since I wasn't the ball guy.
That old bastard. Daddy. He couldn't have cared less if I ended up in prison.
Not to know Somalians was to love him.
I thought something underhanded was going on, but I didn't quite know what it was. So I took an unscheduled trip on the SS Pittsburgh from Shanghai. Both Lloyds of London and I were suspicious about the ships that had been capsizing near the Central American shore. I wanted to solve the puzzle before they did. While in port ready to sail, the seedy-looking dock agent saw my name on the list and, never having seen Somalian, thought that I was he. He smiled and made cryptic remarks to me like, it will be less suspicious making the exchange and shipping the rest of the cargo to...
You're lucky, Junior, that they didn't sink the crate you were on. Thinking you were simoleons, they just removed the dope in Central America and put the empty dolls back on board and let it travel to the States.
I felt something was going on, but I wasn't sure what. So I returned home and confronted the old fox in the wee hours of the morning for an answer. Oh, we had a terrible row.
That must have been the late night argument I heard you having with your father when you were supposed to be in Shanghai.
Hey, Junior, what about that laundry guy at the club?
Oh, I remember him. He came into the club card room looking for the kitchen. He said he was lost.
Yeah, right, lost. I remember who he was. That's what happened. It was Lum Chin, one of the yeggs from the Shanghai Green Gang. Ha! You must be in plenty trouble. How much you owe him for them stolen art treasures you smuggled? And you can't pay him off, because you've been cut out of the will.
How could he have left his only offspring to the jackals?
That's not exactly right.
Well-known bunion remover specialist and
Stop me! I had a bunion. I swear I had a bunion.
That's exactly what was going on between you and my husband.
He was my
Your paramour!
Santa Claus.
Sugar Daddy!
Tell him, Maisie.
my father. That's right, my father. He met my mother when he was looking for a pretty model to be the prototype for a new doll line he was creating called Darby. He saw it as a new kind of doll, the kind that would go on and on and on and on, generation after generation, and it would have different kinds of outfits for every occasion, not like Little Orphan Annie or Raggedy Ann who wore the same clothes year after year. This doll would have accessories, cars, boats, boyfriends. It would keep his company in business forever.
This investigation is turning into a sequel of Mary Noble, Backstage Wife.
Perhaps these 3 balls were from you, Nick.
Nah, I've better things to do than sneaking around my neighbor's patio leaving cryptic notes in the patio lion's mouth.
How'd you know they belonged to the lion on the patio? I didn't say which lion's mouth I found them in, and there are several lions on the grounds.
Luella mentioned them.
How'd you know where they were?
Lucky guess.
What's going on here? Am I digging up planted clues?
Jeffrey told me about them.
I did.
What's your story, Arby?
I never saw them until this moment. Tell him, Luella. Tell him. All right. Then I'll be making myself a drink.
Oh, I would like one too, with a twist of...
I said I'm making myself a drink.
You
I
to
was
say that
being
angry. I would like one too with a twist of... I said I'm making myself a drink.
I said I'm making myself a drink. I was being blackmailed by Van Rich and his lovely Aunt Rich found teasing me, taunting me by my nickname.
Vaseline Vic. I know the story.
He used this bit of background information, using me whenever I might prove useful to him. But I didn't kill him. I swear I didn't. Although I'm slightly sorry to say, I'm glad someone else had the courage to do it. Found out about my past from her husband and went one step further. She tracked down Mr. T.
That's enough. Mr. Flanagan, this investigation is over. I'm relieving you of your duties.
Oh, do sit down, Luella. I can't see the movie.
Her good Samaritanship of paying off my debts. She asked that I let her dress up as a cleaning woman for a week and spy on her husband, who she believed was having an affair with Maisie.
Well, maybe, just maybe, a real reason to dress up as a cleaning lady was to give him slow-acting knockout drops from the vial she said she found. This way, he becomes weak as a kitten, so she could plunge his head into the punch bowl.
Really? What an imagination.
I noticed you took an inordinate amount of time when you excused yourself from dinner and disappeared into the powder room that night, Luella, and I don't recall you returning to the dining room.
Come on, sweetheart.
I've got a gun. Stay away from me, all of you.
All right.
Everybody calm down.
I met Luella in Yugoslavia when we were members of a puppet troupe called Fantasy Fettuccine. When we entertained the King and Queen of Yugoslavia at a banquet, Luella forgot to place the puppet into her hand and she was arrested for making obscene gestures. We wrote to one another. This is when I fell madly, truly, deeply in love with her. After her release, the puppet master decided to take the troupe to the United States. Soon after, we embarked in Louisiana. Luella left the troupe and worked as a waitress in a high-end restaurant. Identified this southern inflection in my speech pattern. She and Mr. Vedrich planed to Las Vegas and were married. She promising me that it would only be temporary, divorcing him on some grounds, thereby leaving her enough money for the two of us. I couldn't leave her, so I became their household butler.
Need a drink of fruit punch toast with you if you get out.
Okay, good people.